Hi, I'm John Blackburn, and this is Entertainment Matters. This is a podcast for people who make live entertainment happen. I talk to people from across live entertainment and beyond who have interesting, useful perspectives on how we can think about our work and how we put it into practice. You'll hear longer form interviews along with shorter analysis episodes where I pull out ideas from the conversations and explore how you can start applying them in your own work. Today's guest is Luke Wade, who runs LiveWorks, creating video and visual assets for live entertainment. In this conversation, Luke tells us about his journey from producing his own shows into specializing in video, why understanding the magic of your show is essential before you promote it, and how trust and collaboration make the best creative partnerships. Please enjoy this conversation with the marvelous Luke Wade. Luke, thanks so much for coming to have a conversation with me. Let's just get started at the very beginning. Tell me, who are you and what do you do?
My name's Luke. I do primarily, I would say, therapy for producers and promoters. They ring me up. We talk about everything that's gone wrong. Emotional support. There's a lot of that. And then at the end of all that, we might make a video for them or a poster, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, maybe we should just join forces.
Yeah.
I first sort of came across you, Luke, because I kept seeing these brilliant videos for a few of the bigger theatre touring productions. So my first sort of encounter with your work was some great promo videos. And am I right that alongside that work, you mentioned posters, you also do the sort of on-stage visuals as well for productions?
Yeah, it's all sorts. Yeah, I'd say probably the promo and the onstage stuff is the biggest. It's kind of split 50-50, I'd say.
And you're based up in Sheffield, is that right?
In Sheffield, yeah. Doing my best to disguise the thick, heavy northern accent. So hopefully everyone can understand me. But yeah.
Great, man. Remind me again, because it's not just under your name, Luke Wade, is it? You have actually like a whole company, which people, if they're watching the video, can probably see behind from your very impressive desk setup that you've got a larger operation behind you. So tell me a bit about the sort of the company, the entity that you work through.
Yeah, well, it's long story short. The company's called LiveWorks, and it's only called that because I designed the logo for like Luke Wade, which is my name, and I really liked it, and I didn't want to change it. So I just thought, well, what? It's got to be LW, idea. So that seemed appropriate. So yeah, lots of thought went into that. And yeah, essentially, it's just we're kind of based up here. We've got like a little studio facility behind me. Which doesn't look as nice as all this, but just keep the camera facing this way. But yeah, it came from, I suppose, just not wanting to, oh God, there's a longer story in this, but it kind of came from not having the budget to do the stuff that I do now, and kind of me thinking, right, well, I'll do it, and then when we have the budget, I'll get somebody in to do it, and then kind of plans changing. And so I kind of moved into the thing that I only really looked at seriously as a kind of stopgap, I suppose. So it's kind of crazy how things happen. Found out I actually really loved it and really enjoyed this stuff. And so yeah, did it on my own for a few years, then made the company, and the company's probably about 4 years old now. So yeah, coming up 5 years soon, which would be nice.
Obviously, I've got a little bit of an idea of the kinds of people that you work with, but tell me, who do you work with? Who is LiveWorks for?
I like to think of it as a one-stop shop for producers and promoters. So anything visually related, I like to think, from promotional content to, we do branding, print, as I say, the big screen displays and stuff like that. I've done like electronic billboards. So I like to think if you're needing that kind of thing, I like to think we're a bit of a one-stop shop for that. Kind of a big focus on quality and just trying to make it as good as possible. But yeah, I would say that's a good way to kind of describe the thing, the business.
I think the way that I started conceptualizing what you were doing was you're basically a visual specialist, like you say. Anything to do with that visual realm, you seem to have a
I'm totally taking that. I'm totally having that.
One of the things that I like about it so much is that if we stick within the sort of the industry, the entertainment industry that we're mainly working in, there's a lot of pressure, isn't there? This idea that everybody should be able to do everything brilliantly. There's a lot of pressure that, if you're a musical director or a producer, that you should somehow also have a great eye for design.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I see a lot of that working with a lot of producers. I see, the kind of key individuals who try and do everything to varying degrees of success. Some people are great at it. Um, yeah, I certainly felt that very early on when we first started, like 10 years ago. Me and a business partner at the time thought, well, let's just produce shows because that's famously easy, isn't it? So we'll just take out a load of money and we'll just make shows. And yeah, that was very much, we were kind of doing everything. So I feel that sometimes born of necessity, admittedly. But yeah, I feel that quite deeply.
So you actually, prior to this incarnation of Luke Wade Enterprises, you actually had started producing shows yourself.
Yeah, well, not successfully. I would say it was we were arguably aiming for the sky. It was at a time where, as I say, me and the guy I was working with at the time, we were kind of we were in the band. We were having the band experience. We were playing havens and working men's clubs, and it was like if we just got into theatre, if we were just in the theatre, we'd be rich, and all our problems would be solved. And obviously, no one would pick up the phone, and so. I mean, how long have you got?
Go for
Yeah,
it.
no one would pick up the phone, and so we were like, "Well, okay, great idea. Let's make a show that will absolutely ensure that people talk to us and actually pick up just two lads from Sheffield." And so we got into the holographic technology, spent far too much money, figured all that out, but the kind of scale of it all, and it just was, you need a team to make all that happen. And so it never ended up happening, but we had a great time. But that was very much where well, this happened at the time. It was like, well, we need someone to deal with the website and the promo and the graphic design. I'd kind of done a bit of it anyway, and I'd always had a camera, and so I thought, well, it makes sense for me to handle that, as well as scoring charts and booking shows. Just far too much. Now, I really respect the people who do it. I work with plenty of them who just kind of they do the whole thing, and I think hands up because oh man, I couldn't do it. It was too much. It was too much for me.
And what was your prior to taking on the sort of the visual role, as it were? What was your kind of role in the band as it was at the time?
Just keyboards. I remember, I was kind of studying for some A levels and whatnot, and just got into music. So cancelled all that, and I thought, well, I'll play keyboards because that's quite uncool. Nobody does it. Loads of guitar players. I'll make a load of money, and just so that was it.
Sorry,
That
your
was it,
backup
basically.
plan for Riches was to play keyboards.
Yeah, that was. So
That's
yeah,
incredible.
so, I take no business advice from me. Like truly,
Well, it's a
just
journey, isn't it?
it's a
So I
minor
should.
miracle.
No, that's great. That's funny. I was once on a cruise ship gig as a drummer and a musical director, and someone who is now a good friend of mine. They joined the band on keyboards. They'd sort of kept themselves to themselves for the first few days, but eventually I managed to persuade them to come out and just have a sort of celebratory drink. They were doing a really good job, and we were chatting, and so I said, "Oh, so what do you do when you're not on these gigs on cruise ships?" And he said, "Well, I live in London, and I play sort of gigs and functions and covers things. And I do quite a lot of jazz and all the rest of it." I was like, "Oh, okay." And I sort of said, "Oh, do you do any teaching or anything?" And he said, "No, no, no, not really." And then he paused and he said, "Although I do have a backup plan, I do really edgy, dark stand-up comedy." Completely. And his
Needless to
fail
say.
safe was, that was
Yeah,
great.
why didn't I think of that? I've playing
Yeah.
keyboards this whole time. Well, because I thought I knew a lot of guitar players and bass players, and I didn't know any keyboardists. And in my head, I just thought, well, I'll do that, and then I'll get a load of money playing in bands or whatever. I'm 18 at the time.
You can be
You live and
forgiven.
learn.
That's
You live
great.
and learn. You play drums. You play drums, so you can't argue with that.
No, I wouldn't argue with you, Luke. I was just enjoying it. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And then switching back to now with LiveWorks and Luke Wade as you are now. When do people come to work with you and your various services that you offer? What are the sort of triggers where people go, "I need a Luke"?
Well, that's a really good question. I think we work with a range of people, and a lot of larger companies will come to us because they've just seen what we do and think, well, that looks great, and maybe there's been a nice word put in. What's really nice is when we have this, it's not super often, but when people kind of come from, they're used to doing everything themselves and they built it all themselves. I'm thinking of some clients in particular who kind of realize that actually there is another level, and there is, there are standards, it's really nice when they recognize kind of what we can do as this is better than I can do, and kind of take that risk, because it does feel like a risk for them often. There's often quite a few discussions on, look, it's going to feel and look a bit different to what you're used to because it's not you doing it anymore. And then, but when they trust that and when they're happy with the end result, which they almost always are, then, well, no, which they always are actually. People are always thrilled, and that's lovely then, because it's kind of like, well, good for you. You took the risk and you've got a better product out of it, and it's kind of nice to. No, I won't say guide them through it, but it's just nice to be trusted. It's nice to be recognised for the value you bring.
Yeah.
I'm most grateful for that.
Yeah, fantastic. I don't remember when it happened, but it's in the last couple of years. I remember that shows that friends of mine were involved in, because I'm likely to see some of that promotional material early, aren't I? Because I'm, liking all the pages and all of this kind of stuff. I do remember there was this moment when there was a sort of a marked increase in the quality and the joy that some of these videos were putting out. And I remember noticing that and wondering who it was that was doing it. And there was a period of I think that's why I first got in touch with you a year or so ago, or started following what you were doing. And yes, for example, you did the Dancing in the Streets promo, for example,
Yes,
didn't you?
that's correct, yeah.
Right. So that was not the first one I saw, but that was the one where I saw it and went, right, who is doing this? Who is it that's producing these videos? And I sort of had a look around, and then a mutual friend of ours, Graham Taylor, MD and supervisor, said, "Oh, it's Luke Wade." And then after that, every time I saw a great, like a new promo video or a new bit of sort of content, and I went, "Oh, that looks unusually way more professional than I'm used to." And I would go on, and it was always Luke Wade or LiveWorks. So
Bless you, man. Thank you.
I along with everyone else, I'm sure, like, is really appreciative of what you're bringing to these shows and the opportunity to, again, like you say, like, increase the quality up those next few steps so that we all get the results that we want. So yeah, thank you.
No, brilliant. Thank you, Graham, as well. Shout out to Graham. He's a nightmare. We should.
No, if we say that's twice we've mentioned his name now. If we do it 3 times, I think he might appear around the back of the. I'm going to get him on here at some point. Kick in.
That'd be brilliant. Yeah.
Thinking more broadly about your thoughts about the entertainment industry and specifically the visual bits of it and your work, what would you like to see happen going forward in live entertainment?
I think visually, in terms of the promotional content, I think it's kind of handy to look at what other industries are doing and kind of what's happening in the rest of the internet. And I don't know, for good or bad, kind of what they're doing is very different to what we do. There's a big onus on kind of on video platforms, on the things that really convert to sales and engagement, let's say, is often stuff that features like drama or, like, I don't know, people in bikinis or something like that, which isn't relevant to us. And so it's like it's getting harder, certainly when you're advertising on Facebook, to keep retention up and stuff like that, as Facebook moves towards a video-centric kind of platform. And I say Facebook because that's where a lot of the demographic is for theatre. It's kind of harder to compete because naturally for shows there's a certain sheen that it has to have on it, and so it's kind of trends, and Facebook kind of want to push this kind of content. We can't make that kind of content. It's so competitive with all the other kind of content that would get pushed. And, and so when Facebook's choosing kind of what content to display, when you're running ads, when the almighty algorithm is kind of picking, well, what ad shall I show? It's not always easy to make theatrical advertising content for social media as competitive from a pure retention kind of just getting people to stop scrolling and watch the damn thing, It is getting harder. And I know when I've spoke to Facebook, you get Facebook reps and Meta kind of representatives who will kind of guide you through. They seem fairly unsure as well what the solution is. If it's a product or if it's if a personal brand, they seem easy to market. It's just very difficult. There's a whole slew of other forms of media that are, by their nature, more engaging, I suppose I'm trying to say, than here's a stage and here's a performance and here's a bunch of audience members having a great time. So in terms of answering your question, what I would like to see, I suppose I suppose what would be nice is more control over specifically how videos are put together in the Meta suite. At the minute, you have to make the videos, obviously, and then you upload them. What would be lovely is if, and I think they're on about this, but what would be lovely is if you're making like sections of video content, uploading that, and then, for instance, Facebook Meta, whatever, is turning that into, well, let's try this 3-section clip first and then put this together and then try that. Because those first couple of seconds they're absolutely so important. And it's a minor nightmare trying to get people to watch content. So that'd be nice.
What would you like to see happen within live entertainment itself? What kinds of things do maybe we need to change in how we're doing things or how we're thinking about things to best take advantage of the current reality, if you like?
Well, I suppose there's one big thing that would really, really help, and more people are doing it, but that is just understanding that having a little bit of time to specifically shoot things that I believe aid towards kind of retention and conversion. I'm sure the people have different opinions on that, but just putting the time aside, maybe an hour before the show, just to say, well, it's getting harder to make video content kind of competitive. Treat it seriously, which many do, and it's getting better. I still get some kickback from a few people, but that hour before a show, just to kind of say, right, this is your time. Let's get the shots that can't be achieved before an audience come in and and then you're restricted. The show is the show. I don't know how much kind of certainly touring regional theatre is going to change from I'm sure in 50 years the kind of shows will still be shows, but we can certainly put a bit more time towards the capturing of that in ways that engage people at current kind of social media standards. Yeah, so that's nice. It's happening more, but I would really stress that.
Talk more about that. So when you say capture more of the stuff that sort of aids social media engagement, what are you talking about? Like what do people need to capture more of for that to get closer to that sort of Facebook or Instagram or video engagement?
Well, I'll give you a few for free, and then a few you'll just have to work with us to find out. But one big one I would say that we found is that close-up facial shots by far do much better on retention than kind of wide stuff. So we start a lot of content with just a shot. Here it is. It's a performer looking to camera, singing a line, something really catchy, something as memorable as possible or as associative as you can make it. Just something that people instantly know. It shouldn't be hard to digest, and it's just a shot, and it's just this. And we're talking like tiny percentage points, but one of the big like frustrations I have is I send stuff over and I'm like, please let me know how it works. Send me some screenshot. And so, for plenty of stuff we do get feedback, and that's kind of based off that. But then for a lot, I'm kind of like pestering, like, please send, how did it work? Because we don't run the ads, we just produce the content. But yeah, from the information we've had back, yeah, 100%, that's measurable. Someone explained it to me that apparently, I don't know if this is true, but apparently there's just a little part of your brain that when you see someone's face, it just fires in, and it's to do with, are you in my tribe? Are you a friend or foe? And it's just something to do with that mechanism. It just stops you for a minute. It just actually engages you. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. But you can only get those shots that in a way that look great, or the way I like to get those shots is to have an empty theatre. I set up my own lights, and we do the shot, and we light it, so it's as flattering as possible, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, that time's valuable.
Let's like expand that point a bit, because I'm sure there are plenty of other examples of what basically amounts to the same thing, which sounds like producers, acts, etc., have probably for the last 20 years done promotional material in the same way, which is probably either the first show or a very early show, or invited some guys in with some cameras and then gone, get what you can, And what I'm interested in is, what is the difference between that, and I'm just going to say less considered way of doing it, right? Rather than perhaps how I imagine you might do it, which is that there might be more conversation before that date is booked about how it could run best. So tell me, what's the difference between a show that gets what you would consider the most out of a promotional recording and a show that gets a good result because it's you doing it, but not the best one you could have got for them?
Well, what I'd love to say at this point is, well, here's the figure. This is the percent increase on sales, which I am absolutely trying my best to understand myself, or to be the kind of get the information needed to kind of work that out. I suppose the difference is when you see a video like you said you saw, and you think, oh my God, that looks great, and I feel good watching it. And you watch another video and you think, well, it's a technical demo. It's got the shots. It's fine. You know, it's ultimately about that emotional reaction. You know, I drive myself crazy because I'll sometimes watch promos like 100 times just until it feels how it should feel. I think the decision is made quick with people. I think they look at something and go, well, do I like that kind of music, or does it remind me of something? Do I like the person on the screen right now? Yes or no? And I think that's as quick as the decision's made. Certainly with branding, I think for tributes, do I like that music? Does my mum like it? Do I like that guy on the poster? Yes or no? That decision's made in 3 seconds. And I think it's as quick as that. And I think that's the difference, just understanding that in the shots, you certainly aim, you know, a lot of it is about trying as much as possible, where at the end of the gig, you can say, look, we tried everything possible. We did the print, we did this, we did this, we did this. And in the world of video, the difference is just to have that time, for me, to have that time before the show, to have those discussions and just try and pick out what is going to make people look at this and go, I want a ticket. And who knows? And who knows? Nobody knows. I certainly don't. But often the answer seems to be in associating with a person, something that's fun, something where people are instantly likable, or which reminds them of a film that they love, or which reminds them, you know, of love members or families, people that they can tag. And I think often you just don't have that discussion, and it shows. It shows in the final content. It shows. And when you do have those discussions, you can't describe it, but it's a feeling. Certainly, and certainly the people we work with, you know, I don't know what our retention is, but almost everybody keeps coming back. And I think there's something in that. I think there's something in that where we're really thinking about what is the magic in the show? How do we capture that? And then once you're given the time to do it, it's almost intangible. One day I'll have that figure. One day I will pester enough where I will have enough information to say, right, there's some kind of figure I can put to this. At the minute, I don't have it. And so all I can base it off is, you know, do people come back and what do people say when they see the stuff? I think that's probably the difference.
Thank you, Lou. That's great. And again, still sticking with that main sort of idea, talk me through what would the ideal time scale, interaction process look like with a new producer? So how early would they get in touch with you? Someone gets in touch with you because they've seen some of your other videos and they've gone, oh, we need some of that. And let's pretend this client wants the best result possible. So how far in advance, when do they get in touch with you?
This is a great question. Not 3 weeks before the gig, please. There's, you know, Mrs. works in a very structured environment, and she often says, my God, how does your industry function? Why is everybody so, and it seems to be.
Function, Luke? I mean, yeah.
Well, there we go. Immediately, as soon as possible. God, I would love it if people could give me 6 months notice.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. 3 months is nice. Any less than that, you know, our mental bandwidth is focused on immediate projects. 3 months, please, would be absolutely lovely, because sometimes it takes that time just to kind of realize actually what's the magic, what do we love about, you know, it's nice to come and see a show, but if it's 3 weeks out, I don't know anything about, you know, I can watch some videos or something like that, but it's so much better when I can come and see a show. And I've done it before when there's been time. I've seen it a few times. You know, I will make that effort. I will come because I like what I do and it makes the whole thing better. So yeah, that would be absolutely lovely.
Well, let's keep that going, right? So let's play in this fantasy land, right? Where someone has seen heard this conversation and has gone, oh, well, I've got my first gig scheduled in 6 months, so I should get in touch with Luke right now. So they get in touch with you, and What does the perfect client say when they first get in touch with you?
So the perfect client gets in touch at least 6 months before the show, at which point I pencil it in, and you're under no obligation. We don't bill anything. It's fine. Even if you're 50% sure it might happen, just let us know. We can pencil it in. It's fine. And then I suppose the discussion should be based around if you have branding, which that's usually the first job anyway. So normally you have an idea in branding. We don't always do that, and so the first discussion should be: what's the brand? What are the predominant colours? What is the emotion like? Is it a girls' night out kind of thing? Is it just, are we going for family feel good vibes? And then often what we do quite a lot actually is if it's that far out, sometimes what we do is we do quite a lot of green screen stuff, and so sometimes there's even like intermediary things we can try and make in kind of in the middle of an actual live show recording, and that can often kind of inform the direction that we go. There's a project that we did recently. I'll not mention it, but it started out, there was no live show footage, and this is happening more and more, which is great. But there was no live show footage. But we understood like very deeply what the core message was, and it was all associated with a film, and there's a specific scene in mind, and that was Runaway. That's so it did so well, and it converted to sales, and a tour was sold based off having the discussions months and months and months before any show had even taken place. We were there for the branding portion of it as well, which was great. And we just did a green screen shoot, and we produced, I think, 3 or 4 concepts in total. There was one in particular that really worked, and that was used to inform when we did the live show recording as well, kind of what the direction that took.
Great.
And it's selling great, and it's doing really well, and it's a brand new show, and it won't need to wait till year 2 to turn a profit. So, but it's but and I say that it's based off a great idea. But the idea is great. It's not just we made great videos, but yeah, it's if you have the time, it really you can really just sit back and say, well, look, we gave it the time, and we got in touch with the right people. We did everything possible in our control to kind of make this a success. So yeah.
Fab, thank you. And picking up on something that you mentioned briefly there, I don't want to lose it. So you mentioned that you don't always do the branding for people, but branding for shows is something that you offer. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. I love doing it because video's a nightmare. It's so nice. It's so nice just having a lovely photo shoot and coming up with a design. I personally really love whenever anybody says, can you work with us on some kind of branding or poster design? Truly brings joy to my life. But yeah, we do a lot of it. We've got a style with that. It's a specific thing that we do, again, based heavily on people are going to make their mind up in 3 seconds. It just needs to be simple. We don't overclutter things. But yeah, and we, there's a good team that I can dip in and out of as well. Some people who we use for that. And but yeah, I love doing branding. It's fun.
So this company, this client, they've come to you 6 months in advance. They've contacted you early enough, and you've told them that you also do the branding, and they've jumped on board with that. So you're now helping them through that process. What next?
So perfect client. They've got in touch. We've either done the branding or maybe just tangentially involved. Often that's handy. They've also got a great idea, and it's a great concept, and you don't have to produce something that has like 3 kind of core concepts to explain before people go, oh, I get this. It's just instantly kind of digestible to them. And then what would be nice is we're planning a live show filming date. Sometimes that's the first show, or just sometimes it's just a particular one that is going to sell really well. I'm a big fan of audience shots, personally. So often we will pick based on kind of what sold well, or if the venue's kind of appropriate for that. And then I suppose it can be as simple as that. That can be a great stage one. There's a concept, we're involved early, and then there's a live show date, and there's plenty of time to think about it. That's great. A good stage 2, if you're really thinking about kind of phasing your kind of marketing approach, let's say, the idea being, sometimes what's nice to do is we produce green screen stuff. I say green screen, just stuff that isn't filmed in a venue. And the idea being that you're building your audience online. You can run those as ads and see what kind of, attention you get. And then you've kind of got your lookalike audiences and all that stuff ready for when you run the live show promotional content. So that could be a stage two. That could be a stage two. Although it can be really hit and miss. There are plenty of people who say they are doing that. I'm not really in that world anymore, but I hear them talking. I think, no, you're not. No, it really is its own job, and I can really only think of kind of a handful of people I work with who really are looking at the figures and building that audience and kind of working that out. Not that it's super difficult, but it's just so time consuming. Anybody who works in marketing will tell you it's an absolute nightmare. But if you are dedicated to it, if you are the perfect client, you have a team or you have somebody who is thinking about that, and you're building that online audience, and then by the time you're filming the live show, ideally before that, you have like a huge pool of people that you're ready to kind of retarget, as well as the new ones that you're going to be showing this to for the first time. That would be a good way of doing it, I suppose.
Thank you. That's great. I wonder if for a lot of smaller producers, say tribute acts or like solo acts that work in theatre and kind of are used to doing things themselves, even if they've been doing it relatively successfully for quite a long time, they're not used to thinking that strategically maybe, and over that extended period of time. That idea of, first of all, coming to you 6 months before the likely first date, just to get the process started, and then that you can then help them build assets, video assets, promotional assets that they can use, so that when it comes to actually selling the first show, maybe that is 3 months beforehand or whatever you think, a timescale before that. They already have some material so they can build up, like you say, the lookalike audiences or whatever, at least test the waters a bit. Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks. I think that even just that
Yeah.
shift is probably at that longer time scale.
Yeah, I suppose actually, like the big thing, yeah, if it is your literal first show, then it's not 6 months; it's 2 years, ideally.
Right. Tell me about that. Tell me about what that difference is.
Well, just because you're not booking shows for 6 months' time. You are booking. Obviously, anybody who kind of produces promotes will know that. You're easily booking 2 years, 18 months in advance. And so I suppose the branding stage of that would happen then. But yeah, for a lot of people, they've the amount of people who I work with personally who are starting shows for the first time, it's their initial concept is not super common. Normally the shows are happening, they've kind of had stuff in. And so if you're at that stage, I suppose that's where the 6 months comes in. There's some big kind of date coming up, and and you think, oh, this is a great venue and we've sold out, we should film it. I suppose that would be the 6 months. But yeah, and certainly the people who I see at the highest levels who seem to have success after success, they're the people who are thinking strategically about that. They are, and it's not just in the video; they're doing it in kind of print and everything. But yeah, the people who seem to do the best they are thinking like that. Yeah, I'm just a fan of this idea, and it's what we tried to, in my illustrious producing career. But it kind of infected every decision we made then, which is, look, let's leave no stone unturned, and let's just make sure that by the time we come to go on sale or whatever, we know we've done everything that we possibly can. And some people don't need to do that. Some people, they've been doing it that long. They don't need to think like that. They have their audience and they just sell out everywhere or sell really well, or even thinking there's some great audiences overseas. And so, not everybody needs to do that, but plenty of people do. And it does seem to make a difference.
One thing that I've really enjoyed about this conversation so far, Luke, is the fact that you've said 2 or 3 times now how important it is for you to be able to say, we have done everything we could possibly do to help make this show, this production, a success. And I'm sure that is part of the reason that your work is where it is and is as well regarded as it is, because I'm not sure that I'm not thinking of anyone specifically, but I'm not sure that sort of commitment to quality and effort is necessarily shared by everybody that's involved in our ecosystem, even including, and again, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but I think that attitude is actually quite often missing from the producer or the act side of it as well. Maybe that's why sometimes people don't get the call until 3 weeks before, because there's there's a weird thing, isn't there? Especially if people are coming from a performance background. I mean, you may have experienced it yourself, where it's this idea of, I think I got this from Seth Godin, by the way. This is not a JB original thought, but this idea of separating the art, the product, from the marketing of said product, as if they're two separate things. And of course, I mean, this is a guess, but from what I've seen and from talking to people, the closer the relationship between the creation of both of those kinds of assets are, the more successful they both are. So if people get you involved at the beginning, to be involved with branding and to have discussions about, how to set the show up for success from your perspective early, it's going to lead to a better result. But in order for that conversation to happen, the person creating the show has to want that to happen, don't they?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's an uphill battle. And the truth is, you don't. It's such a risk. And I totally get that people. There's a million things that everybody's juggling. I totally get that. As an industry, it doesn't have. I don't know if it has the kind of budgets that would be associated with projects of similar return in other industries. I don't know. But yeah, totally, it's an uphill battle. I think some people quite like that in us, that we, I don't have the time to think about all this rubbish. You saw it, you do it. And if you're 3 weeks out or 6 months out, I'm going to bill you the same, but the project will just be better if you can if you let us know just sooner.
You mentioned risk there, Luke. The risk's an interesting, wasn't it? So people in live entertainment, especially in theatre, talk about risk, the risk they're taking on, the risk of doing X, Y, Z, the risk of doing a new show, but what people never do is ask what the risk of not doing it is. So sure, there's a risk to investing money in LiveWorks productions to get the video and to start 6 months out and to do it properly. There's also a risk of trying to film it on your iPhone in the rehearsals. Both of those things carry risk, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I've kind of been there myself, and I'm not going to be. You are right, and I'm not going to say yes, and it's foolish to do that. It's foolish to go homegrown, like, how dare you? You should be getting the right people in. Often it's getting the right people in at the right time, doing the right job. Often that's handy, which is again why just starting a discussion early can be. I just stuff all the time, John, where people are like, I've got no budget. What can we do? And anybody you can ask will tell you. I will always try and be like, right, okay, well, if you wanted to handle that and you could do that way, and then or maybe there's some other guy I know who could handle that. We'll look after this thing, which feels quite important. And that's never a problem. But at the same time, I totally get it. I totally get it when you're starting a new thing up or it's a new show idea, and you haven't got hundreds of thousands of pounds to play with, and it's like, I need a version of this thing. The real shame is when that happens with the branding. I always kind of feel that's frustrating, and I don't just mean. I mean when I see stuff go out and I think that just doesn't look good, because I kind of feel, well, that the visual standard just in all industries is so high these days. Things just look so good. From like, how good do like TV series and stuff look now? It all just looks great. And I feel like this industry does lag behind a bit. I see some posters go out and I think, stop doing that on your own. Just pay somebody to make your poster at least, That always frustrates me. Or when you see kind of AI creeping into stuff now. Not that I have anything particularly against AI, but when it looks just a bit rubbish, I think, well, I don't know. That frustrates me.
Yeah.
And that's not even from a point of view of because you didn't come to us. I don't mean that. I just mean, I just mean, I know. I think it suggests that maybe if you can't have a nice poster, at least that's someone who really understands design made for you, then maybe you're not. I don't know. Maybe you should assess where the budget went to. Just do a nice poster at least, for God's sake.
I totally agree with you, and I'm just going to draw it back to that thing that we spoke about a couple of minutes ago about kind of just taking the thing seriously and actually genuinely wanting it to be good. And, again, not divorcing the show, the production itself from the marketing of said production. That's interesting that it sounds like the most fundamental thing visually you think people need to get right is the branding and the poster as an expression of that, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. That initial branding, I think it is the most important thing. And it's not even it's not even that expensive, I don't think, really, compared to video, which can cost a fortune sometimes. The poster's the easy bit. But yeah, and I say the branding as an expression of whatever the idea is, that should be rock solid. There's no excuse for that these days.
Let's go back to that briefly. You mentioned that with this ideal client who's got in touch with you 6 months before, and let's say that they've got good budget to do it, let's make them the perfect client. You mentioned the concept of a show, and I think that is a term that gets bandied around quite a lot. And what I'd be interested to know is, from your perspective, thinking about developing branding, video content, visual content for the show itself, all of that stuff that you do, what are the constituent parts of a concept for a show? What do you need? And I'm thinking particularly, you mentioned something about that a show should have one sort of key point rather than maybe 3 things it's trying to do. So talk me through, if this perfect client, they've got the perfect structure of a concept, what would that be?
Well, if I had the answer to that, I'd be much wealthier than I am now. I'd be a very, very rich man.
What's your best guess?
I think something that is the best concept for a show would be something that people look at and just go, I get that. And my mum would love it, or my partner would love it, or my mates would love it. I think it's as simple as that. Whatever it is you're doing, just make it look fun and make it so people go, yeah, great, totally get that. Like, I'm going to tag my dad in that. The other thing as well to bear in mind is that most of the purchasing decisions in theatre, or I actually think the most domestic purchasing decisions, I want to say 80% is made by women. Women buy theatre tickets typically. I've asked whenever I've gone up to couples and said, who's bought the tickets? I think maybe once a guy's gone, actually I did. It's always the ladies. So something that keys into that as well, and I don't know what, but just keep that in the back of your mind.
A bit more structurally, Luke, I've come to you 6 months in advance. I've got the budget. How am I going to present the concept to you? Am I going to talk about the music first? Am I going to talk about the audience first? Am I going to talk about feeling the show creates first? What needs to be in the description?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. Often when people approach me with concepts, it's based on stuff that, whether it's a tribute or a musical to something, and it's just easily latchable. You can latch onto that and you go, I know exactly what that is. I can see.
Right. Great. The idea is that it should be easily latch-onable to. So let's take a tribute as an example. Let's take an easy one, right?
I'd say certainly in the context of we just want something that we can market and that there's an easy pipeline to make promo, make it latchable. In the world of theatre, I'm definitely not saying that in terms of what is the best creative possible expression of a new director. If you want to do some kind of avant-garde silent expression on the economic decline, maybe that's great, and maybe that is like artistically super relevant and fantastic. I wouldn't know how to sell it.
Right. Although interestingly, Luke, you have just described a thing very clearly, haven't you? Silent, expression of the economic, avant-garde.
Sure.
You did actually
Everyone's dressed as penguins.
Yeah.
And communicate just by tapping their feet. That's the.
I think I saw that actually at the, I think I saw that in North London somewhere. But this idea of it being something where we can make the visual content so that it sells well. So great. So easily latch-onable to, so that people get it really quickly. And maybe another way to get at the same thing would be to say, you don't have to name any names, but if you think about things where you've gone, yeah, I get it, and maybe things where you've gone, you've had to ask a few more questions. What were the differences between those two, or how they were presented?
Yeah, I am. I should say the context of this discussion as well, if we're rolling with the easily latchable, honourable kind of theme, I would probably just say that there's a whole side of theatre that isn't doing that, and that's a very different world. I'm not in it, but there's truly original stuff happening. But I suppose, in my little corner, the easily latchable, honourable stuff, fairly straightforward. it's already very familiar. And then for the stuff that isn't, I don't have a specific example, but often, it's nothing a phone call can't kind of bring me up to date with. And then the question becomes, how do you communicate that? And I suppose this question is for any new concept, whether it be a product or anything outside of theatre, like that. That's the question, isn't it? That I suppose a lot of marketing firms try to answer is, how do we convert an idea or a thing into some kind of digestible visual trick that just makes you have a dopamine chemical reaction and, oh, well, yeah, I'll buy the tickets, and God knows. And I think a lot of marketing firms don't know either, because I've worked with a lot of them, and not just in this industry, but plenty say, well, we have a great track record and these are the sales that we can guarantee X, Y. Nobody knows. You don't know. You don't know until you've tried it. Maybe the geniuses of the marketing world, maybe they do, but I certainly find in theatre in particular that you don't know what's going to work until you've tried it. A big part of what we do is we produce lots of different variations on the core concept, because normally what you're looking for is just one or two winners that people really do watch and convert.
I've been asking about sort of defining what might make a good concept. And I think it would be reasonable to say that there's as much art in the concept rather than science as there is in the production of the show itself. Would that be a reasonable sort of analysis of it? We can't say,
Yeah.
oh, we need one of these words, then one of these words, then one of these words. It's more complicated than that. And it reminds me of, I've got some friends that work within fine art as sort of mentors and coaches and stuff. And it's really interesting because they are often more at the, let's say, the abstract end of making things. But apparently it's the same for them. At some point, they have to be able to describe the theme of the work that they do. It doesn't matter how abstract or how weird or new it is. At some point, you've got to be able to say it. You've got to be able to describe it to someone who didn't create the work to find out whether they want to come and see it or not. Is it reasonable to say that the better defined this concept is for the show, the better able a producer is already to communicate what it's about, who it's for, what it's designed to make you feel, all of that stuff? Is it fair to say that the more developed that is by the time they get in touch with you, the more chance you've got to kind of immediately get on with your contribution to what they're doing?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think, and I would dare say that wants to be in place probably fully before approaching probably someone like myself or anybody else. You really got to know you've got to see it, I suppose, or at least a version of it. But yeah, 100%. Did you get those lyrics that I sent you? You were talking about this is to be played, while people are driving to gigs.
Yeah.
I sent you some lyrics. I thought we could sing some songs.
Do you want to just just sing it now, and I'll
I got I think there's a guitar here. I thought I could play the music and you could sing.
And I could sing it. Yeah, we could go for that. Do you want to count me in? Oh my God, that was great. Lovely. So tell me, you've already explained something about your sort of philosophy for how these things can work better. What do you think, moving to the other end of that spectrum, what are some big myths about the visual side of creating and promoting a show, and video production maybe specifically? What are some big myths about that maybe hold producers back?
Yeah, that's a good one. There are maybe two I can think of. The first one, and I don't come across this as much now, but definitely early on, I would say people not thinking that the visual representation of their show, be it the video or even sometimes the branding, is that important. I know early on, kind of, certainly the video side of it was very much like, well, we've got the brochure in the theatre, we've got the print, that's our audience, they're going to be in the venue, that they're going to see, that's what we want to target. And I remember early on it was very much an afterthought. I don't think that's so much the case anymore with a lot of people. Maybe some folk are guilty of that. I suppose one of the big difficulties with that is, for instance, when the brochure drops, you can see an uptick in sales. When the promo video drops, do you see a similar uptick in sales? No, not always. Sometimes not always, and very often kind of not. So it's kind of, I think for some people it can be very much an afterthought. Less so. I think actually I would say Maybe not the promo video itself as a video, but the way that it should be done for advertising specifically, I would say that's definitely underappreciated. I think maybe one myth is that people think, well, we can just run what video content we have as part of an advertising marketing campaign. That's a big myth because it doesn't translate at all. The kind of content you would put on a theatre website is not the content that you would ever put money behind on an advertising campaign, in my opinion.
Luke, I bet hardly anyone outside of the bigger companies knows that. I didn't know that.
This is fairly straightforward. If you're on a theatre website, you're probably already interested. You're probably already vested. Maybe somebody sent you the link, or there's some background interest. You have more of their attention. The video can be slightly slower paced. And if they're interested in the production pictures and all that sort of stuff, they're probably going to give you a bit of their time. They'll probably watch the video. That's not the same on Facebook or any other online platform where people are being bombarded by, I don't know, cat videos, or if you're anything like me, topless men, influencer, fitness people. Very distracting. So it's very different. It's a very different. I'll give you a good example. I'll give you a great example. And this is an argument I still have today, and it drives me crazy. And I can't wait for the day that we get rid of it entirely. Logo reveals, where the logo flashes up as the first thing. No one's watching that. That's not interesting. It doesn't work. People flick straight away. Nobody cares. And the amount of arguments I have, do we need the logo in the video? Does it need a big... It drives me absolutely crazy. The West End doesn't do it. They don't have big, anymore. So yeah, that would be an example. But then on the video that you put on the theatre website, yes, you can have maybe the logo appears in there and does something nice, but never for an ad.
That sounds like such a brilliant example of 1997 thinking in 2025 to me.
Yeah.
And there's so much of that. A lot of the work I do with people is they come into running shows or whatever with all of this culture behind them of wrong ideas that have actually never worked, have never been true. And then they do those things and they wonder why that hasn't worked. And it sounds like maybe a similar thing. So in that situation, someone has come to you, they want to pay you money for your expertise, for you to deliver the best video assets, visual assets, so that they can get the best marketing results from their show. But then they want it to be how they think it should be from 1995.
Yeah. I had a discussion today prior to this call about a show producer who has a wonderful show. It's absolutely brilliant what they produce, and they're absolutely no disrespect there, but they also happen to animate the logo reveal, and we had a discussion about how that will be done. It's nobody's watching that. It's not important. We'll do it. So yeah, that would be an example. Another one I find actually interestingly is the whole, well, I want this costume and this costume and this costume and this costume.
Tell me about that.
And I think that's just how it used to be. And maybe on the poster you'd have all the different outfits, and unless it's intrinsically tied into what the core idea of the show is, that there's, I don't know, the costumes represent characters or something. I'm just not sure that's going to sell any tickets. I might be wrong. I just don't, But the kind of discussions we have over, for me, the shot is not. It's about what's happening here. Is it people having a great time? Is it us connecting with whoever's on stage? Is it a shot of, oh, that just reminds me of this film that I love? Never. Well, your boots have changed. So that's another example of all the thinking maybe.
It's great. And you see it all the time at venues on the posters, don't you? You can tell the posters that are where someone has basically just redone the poster from 1985. I'm changing my decades now, compared to someone that has looked at what is working visually, branding wise now. That's absolutely fascinating. I want to tie that. Tell me what you think about this. I would tie that to two things. Firstly, is what we had a big bit of conversation about earlier, about actually knowing usefully what your show concept is, and then being able to have that expressed in the poster, rather than like, oh, this is what posters are supposed to look like, 1997. It's easy to be distracted by wanting every costume change on the poster, isn't it? If you don't really know what the concept is you're trying to express in the poster. If you haven't really thought about it, it's very tempting, isn't it, to just to do what you did in the 90s or whatever.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You're right, and we've all seen it, like maybe like a country variety show, and it's obviously everybody dresses up as something different, and yeah, you're right. People get distracted by the fact that they want to see this costume and then they want to see this costume and then I'm playing this character and this character, and maybe the actual thing is that no one's bothered about that. They know it's you in different costumes. They wanna like you. That's the challenge. You want to make them like you. It doesn't matter what costume you're in. They get that. They know it's you, and whoever cast. Maybe that's not the important thing. What you're wearing. It's whatever you're in. They like. They're a fan of you. Maybe that's the trick. And that's certainly where I'd push it.
Yeah, you're sort of venturing into that kind of personal brand area a little bit there.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
It's really interesting. It's understanding, isn't it, what is important in order to get the end result that you want, rather than what are the things that you feel comfortable changing. So if someone's having their branding and also their poster designed, they're probably quite comfortable talking about the different costumes in the show, but they may not be comfortable talking about what the point of the show is, because they may not really know, in a detailed way. And then the version that I make the jokes about is sometimes, although obviously it doesn't happen very often these days with that caveat, sometimes in the past, we might get an email with some notes through that we could sort of help with that was ultimately inconsequential because the theatre was only half full on the last 2 gigs. And what really needs to happen is we need to sell some more tickets, but they don't feel they can do anything about that. So they're going to focus in on this one thing that they think they can, that they feel is out of place, and this detail they think they can fix.
Yeah.
But that insecurity.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that kind of insecurity, because we're not experts in every area. We might have good instincts in a bunch of areas, but we're not necessarily all visual experts. We're certainly not all video experts. I
agree with that. I totally agree with that. Again, you're taking such a risk. It costs so much to put on a show, and I totally get it that you think, oh God, what is the, let's see what sticks, and yeah, it is. I suppose just I have no opinion on that other than I've seen that as well. Sometimes it can be the simplest thing. Just try this. I mean, often by that stage as well, if the show's not selling well, it's too late. But people can get really closed off. It is tough. But yeah, I'm just resonating with what you said.
You've told me about some of the myths within the work you do that might hold producers back. Let's switch gears slightly. What is it important for people to think in order to create successful, let's call them visual assets? So what are good ideas for people to have behind them? What's some good attitudes for people to have when they are talking to you? What are some useful things for them to believe in order to, the two of you, you with LiveWorks and a producer, can create something successful?
It's a good question. 2 answers. Sometimes it's really easy because they trust you, and people come and say, well, I've seen your thing and I want this. And you kind of look at it, and they've given you plenty of notice, so you can really think about it. In which case it's just a joy. Sometimes that's not the case. And sometimes, so what I would say, if maybe you're thinking about getting in touch or you're thinking about outsourcing certain parts of your marketing pipeline, let's say, I think understanding that where the stuff will end up in certainly video world, where those will end up, really changes the discussion. It's not, you don't just do one thing for everything, like we said before, where it's placed, or kind of if your audience is hot or cold, something that goes on the theatre website, as we said, is different to an ad. Understanding that is very helpful. And I think it is hard to trust though, isn't it? It is, I'm trying to think of times I brought people in where I really don't know. And I'm probably one of the worst for it. I think, oh, but are you just giving me the spiel? Is it real? Do you really know? The more I talk to people in marketing world, outside of this industry as well, the more I think, I don't know if that's true. You're just saying that. I see these like podcasts where people say, do this one thing to like fix 85% of relationships. And I just think, I don't know. No, I don't buy that.
I'm going to pick up when you mentioned trust a couple of times. So if someone comes in and if they can be comfortable and trust you to do what you do and just kind of let you do it, that's a useful thing. What else is really helpful?
Trust is definitely one. The usual answers that collaboration is a wonderful thing. There's definitely a few people who will say, no, just do this. And I know, certainly in the past, I know that, okay, well, if I try and, veer off the track, just they won't understand, they won't get it, they just want a certain thing. And that's endlessly frustrating.
You mentioned how important trust is. And then you've said that also important is collaboration. So it's not just about siloing you to get on with it on your own. So give me some examples of things that need to be, conversations that need to be had to make it a good collaboration.
I am often the kind of conversations that need to be had are ones, and these again ideally are taking place months before the actual shooting day. But often you want to distill it into an actual shot list. And that's my job. I actually do, and I think I'm very good at it, actually deciding this is actually how it should be lit and where the camera should be and what should happen. Because sometimes what you see with your eyes translates differently to a camera. And so my levels of shot list, but there's kind of an abstract layer above that in kind of, again, what's the concept? What's going to happen in the video? What do people see? A big one is, all right, how do we get people to tag their mums, and wouldn't it be great if this happened and this happened and this happened? And so I suppose it's a conceptual level discussion that I can then convert into an actual kind of, this is the bones of the actual, building blocks. The thing about filming, I don't think I've said this, is it's really fun. It's like we always have a laugh. I always, when we shoot stuff in here, almost always the producers are coming and I've off, if it's like production companies or, team members come, we always have a good time. That might be another misconception, that it's very serious and boring and laborious, but, we always have a laugh. And I think just being open to kind of, I know what I'm doing, and we've had the discussions and we know the concept. And when I say, right, you need to stand like this and do this and make this pose and look there, just trust that it will come out. What you see in your mind is often not what you see on when we're shooting. It can look very different. And I find some people struggle with that sometimes. Some people try and direct, and it's not the same thing. What you see and how it comes out is a whole like day's worth of editing and keying and all sorts of image manipulation abstracted away that you don't see. So, I love it. I love it when people trust you, and when you can have lots of late night phone call conversations about random ideas. And then on the day, just be present and collaborative and throw ideas around, but understand that, that the most efficient way and the best way to make it happen is if kind of we're in control, and we're kind of choosing okay, this is what we need to do next, and the next XYZ. Just having clearly defined roles, I suppose. So if you can come in with that, with those roles defined, look, I'm here to have fun, shout some ideas, but what gets recorded, what those ones and zeros are, is not down to me. It's down to the folk at LiveWorks. That's a great place to be in. And when the best work happens, And I find, the more I do it, the more I find people are up for that. I think, as you said, we've kind of got a style now, and we've kind of got a way that we work. And I think, I know everybody's talking, it's a very small industry, which is great. And I find more and more people are getting in touch saying, look, just do your thing. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling. And it makes me very, it's been a lot of failure, I suppose, really. I've tried more things that have gone wrong than have gone right. And it can really move me, when people have that kind of trust for the process. I think, my God, what a privilege. It's a wonderful thing. So yeah.
Perfect. And that's so interesting, because out of that answer, you've expressed a couple of other things that, again, have come up in the conversation. So the first one is, you mentioned predefined roles, and the idea that you're going to set that up well in advance, aren't you? If someone comes to you 6 months in advance, you can sort of educate them, as it were, through the process. And if you've got that time, it will be easier for them to trust you, because they'll have had more interactions with you. They'll understand how you think and how you work. and all of that kind of thing. So again, it just reinforces, doesn't it, the impact of having the longer lead time has. And again, that idea of them being comfortable enough and secure enough in themselves to relinquish control in that shooting period before the audience comes in, and the importance of having that period before the audience comes in, having that time, and that time being your time, because you're taking the responsibility there, aren't you? But I am absolutely sure that there are people who, it's a security thing. They're not comfortable enough in themselves to say, thank you. Now I need your perspective to run this, not mine.
Yeah. Yeah, it still happens more than you think. And it actually hadn't occurred to me until you said just then that, yeah, a big benefit to just getting in discussions early is that we'll have enough conversations over that time that, yeah, by the time we're in the venue and I'm saying, right, whether it's a group of us, sometimes it's just me, sometimes it's a bunch of us, but we're saying, right, this is our time now. Yeah, you're kind of like, cool, go for it. It happens more than you think that people, yeah, just get a bit worried or try to get involved. And it's funny, like, we've got a job coming up soon, and I've only really been in discussions with this particular client for about a month, and I can kind of feel the that kind of repertoire is not there, and it'll be fine, it'll go great, but it just kind of changes the approach. You have to be, it's kind of that false, you appear laid back, but really under the surface, it's kind of, there's like a load of things being planned and, you kind of going 10 to the dozen. I like to be in that place because we've spoke for so long and, we've been over it so many times that it's a great place to be. And yeah, when you've not quite got, the miles in the tank, it is different. It is slightly different. And I do worry. I do think, okay, well, we'll see how it is on the day and hopefully you've done enough. But yeah, there's definitely something to be said for, that familiarity.
Great. So you've described brilliantly some of the values that are useful and important in order for, say, you and a producer to be able to create something brilliant and effective. Tell me, if someone perhaps doesn't feel they're quite at the stage to work with you yet, whether that's budget-wise, whether it's concept, whatever it is, if they feel that they're not at the stage where they should come and work with someone like you, what would you say were the top things they usually need to do in order to prepare to work with you?
Well, a good first step might be to, you could send me an email. I'm quite happy to talk generally. I'm sure you've noticed. If there's anything I can impart kind of or suggest, well, I'm happy to do that. I had a lot of help myself kind of get into this position. I feel my success, to the degree you could call this success, has definitely been a collaborative process, and so I'm always happy to chat to people if I think I can be useful. And then the other thing as well is just just keep an eye on what we're doing, because trends change, and actually you might find, if you're particularly budget conscious or you don't really know, you might see something and think, actually, that would be really nice. All the other stuff I can handle, but I'd just really like help with this specific thing.
Great. What other questions are useful questions for people to ask themselves to get the most out of working with you?
Well, if it's about video promotional stuff specifically, probably the biggest question is, okay, well, do I have a budget? And I don't just mean for the video content, but like advertising. Am I going to use a company? Am I going to outsource? Am I going to do it myself? Is my partner going to do it? Like it's all stuff that you kind of need to have decided, because it will inform how we kind of deliver the final assets to you. So I suppose that's the main one. And if it's for any other aspects of branding or kind of overall show, print design, whatever, then I suppose just the concepts. Just do I really understand what this is? Is it easily explainable? Is it a good idea? Probably the most essential ones. And then, I don't know, for, we've not really spoke about it, but for show visuals, sometimes we do the LED screen walls and things like that. Probably at that stage, a good question to ask yourself are my tracks finished? If you're having tracks, if not, we can't do anything till they're done. And again, probably what is my budget? What would I like to spend? It's, certainly kind of show visuals there's a lot of leeway in kind of how complicated that can be. So the budget could range massively. So that's always a good one. I think sometimes people think that it will always cost an absolute fortune, but that's not always the case,
That stuff is becoming more and more important. And actually, I'm going to use the word standard as in expected rather than standard as in not good. Yeah, it's really telling now, isn't it? If you go to a show where they have the LED screens, and then the week later you go to a show that doesn't have them, it's a real noticeable change in the production investment, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it can feel really different. I don't know, maybe it's hard to describe. Maybe there's an energy that good screen designs can bring, just that constant motion, and it's just, I suppose, what the lights are doing really, just that constant kind of scene and vibe change. But yeah, yeah, very standard these days.
And again, this is just to link it to something else that was brilliant that you said earlier. You mentioned earlier about sort of the general standard of visual material quality having gone up a lot because, we look at what they're doing in TV, etc. I think people are used to now that higher standard of visual work on stage because we've all seen, even if we haven't been to see it live, we've all seen the Disney Plus recording of Taylor Swift's tour or whatever it is, or, name your favorite our current artist. Everybody is so familiar with that. I think it is missed now if you go and see something that maybe is trying to create a similar experience in a theatre, but that visual element's not there.
Yeah, I certainly miss it. I certainly miss it. I notice it. I suppose it's a trend in a way, stuff changes, and at the minute that's the in tech, big screen behind. I'm sure that it will change in time. It'll be something else. But yeah, it's definitely in at the minute. I certainly miss it. I went to see Jacob Collier a few months
Right.
ago. If you've heard of him, I don't know
Yeah,
if
of
you've heard
course.
of him, but he's absolutely bonkers music, and he like plays the audience. Kind of borrowed it from Bobby McFerrin.
Yeah, the audience
Um,
choir thing. Yeah.
yeah. Oh my God. Talk about a spiritual experience. Like to hear it is like one thing, absolutely brilliant. But his screen design was the best I've ever seen, and he's got like kind of trees on stage and kind of these light bars, and they've done a very similar thing to kind of what Abba Voyage have done, or Voyage. I don't know why I keep saying Voyage, but where it kind
Because you're a
of
classy
goes.
bloke. That's why.
Yeah, completely. Yes, glad you picked up on that. They kind of extend the stage, so you have kind of some real props, and then it kind of continues on, and it's just so clever. It's absolutely brilliant. It looks really clever. Um,
I am so unsurprised that Jacob Collier would create more of an experience for that music because that what you've just described there with the visual is just another example, isn't it, of him being an artist rather than just a performer, right? He's taken into account not only it would have been so easier for someone with the skill. I mean, I sort of stay away from the word talent, but the skill and the ability of someone like Jacob Collier just to sit on stage with a band of incredible musicians and just play some tunes. But he doesn't do that. He's gone, how do I make this incredible?
yeah, it's funny listening to him talk as well. I don't know if you've seen the interviews. So for those who aren't familiar with Jacob Collier, he's won like a million Grammys and a very, very clever songwriter. And I think Hancock wrote to him personally to talk to him about his music. So absolutely brilliant. And then, but he talks, it's always about the emotion behind the chord for him. It's that simple. I choose chords and I choose the transitions to different movements based purely on how it makes you feel. You really feel that in a live situation. It was really interesting. So we were at Nottingham, and he's just started doing this. He'd done it for the first time at Nottingham, where there's obviously the stage and kind of all that stuff, and then a central platform that just has a keyboard. I think two keyboards on it, and so all the band go away, and it's just him and a piano. And it's just unbelievable. And then that's where he plays the audience from as well. The only thing I can describe it as is going to church. It just takes you to church. You don't know what it is, but it feels really profound at the end. That's the magic of what he does. It was unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And I think he played for like 3 hours as well. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, there's a very good reason why the likes of Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones and all of those other huge names from the history of music were happy to spend time with him and incredible.
I was going to say, I think that has to be, I ask myself this question occasionally, like, that has to be the pursuit. We're so we're so like fascinated by new gadgets and toys. So, and the people who are the greats, they obviously use that. Those are tools. But the point is, what, you know, what's happening in this space? What is the emotional? What, you know, how does it make you? Can we make you feel something? That's, you know, and I know everything Herbie Hancock does. Certainly my experience, you know, coming from keyboard world, absolutely does that. And you know, I think in a small way, I suppose I'm trying to do that with these promotional videos. Just I'm trying to make you feel something, and if that can be, if that can be just a little bit of affection towards who you're seeing on screen, just a little bit of that, uh, a bit of an uplift, a bit of this person looks fun. If I can do that, that's a massive win for me.
What is a thing that people could be doing more often to get more out of their video content and the visual aspects of the show? So whether that's sending someone like you more material if they're working with you, if it's having more conversations with you, or if they're doing it by themselves, you know, what are the kinds of things where you think this is really good, but you just should do it 3 more times a week or something? You know, what should people do more of?
Yeah, good question. I am in the world of marketing, I would say look at your figures, like go into NetSuite and just actually spend a bit of time trying to understand that. You know, you need to know what's working, what the retention rates are. We've done it before, and I'm always up for trying it, and I feel like I should probably say it a bit more, but sometimes people come back and say, look, this video did really well, but it's dropping off here. And so sometimes we've tried it a few times where we chop out a certain clip, just move it all up. It takes 2 seconds, just, you know, try that, just to try and eke out an extra bit, you know, an extra bit of retention. And usually that, it's so hard to tell sometimes, but sometimes that can translate into clicks as well. But it's, again, understanding the data. I would say if you're kind of, however often you do it, if you have the time, if you can sit down more and just have a look and say, okay, well, how is it performing this week? You know, what's changing? What particular stuff am I putting out works best for me? You know, I've had people before say that static images work best for them, and it's like, well, you know, who am I to argue? If that's the case, then that's it. But many people don't know. Many people don't really look, you know, and plenty do. But yeah, I would say in the world of advertising, marketing, kind of video content, just try and understand what it is it's telling you and base decisions off that.
That loops around again, doesn't it, to that the importance of that collaborative relationship between you and a producer, say, where the point there is not that you kind of get siloed into just making a nice video. The point is that there's a continuing conversation, it seems, between you and the producer and whoever's sort of in charge of the marketing for them, whether that's themselves or, and that the importance of that collaboration and that to and fro in getting the best result possible from the assets that you have created. And I bet, again, there are plenty of people who think that what is supposed to happen is it's like a one and done thing. You do this bit and then I hand it over to this other person, or then I do the rest. It seems to me that keeping those conversations going beyond just finishing the promo video the hour before the live show happens or whatever sounds like an important part of making a success of it all. Is that a reasonable?
Yeah, I think so. And I suppose it loops back to just making sure that you're doing as much as possible. Truthfully, what percentage of your sales can be attributed to the promotional video content? I don't know. Maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 80%. I don't, you know, I don't know. And I'm sure it's different for every show. But yeah, the earlier the better. And then at least you know that you've given this as best possible chance as we can.
Great. And finally, where can people learn more about you and what you're doing, how to work with you?
We have a website, obviously. I'm on LinkedIn. Anything vaguely interesting goes on LinkedIn. So that's probably a good thing just to be on, post on that fairly regular. And yeah, and then the website, just theliveworks.com. And then Instagram, I go through stages of being very kind of on it with that and totally abandoning it. So I probably just say LinkedIn. It's probably the best place.
Cool. Luke, thank you so much. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd want to say to, you know, maybe producers people watching or listening to this that, maybe are considering working with someone like you?
Yeah, good question. I would just as much say that the proof's in the pudding. Have a look at what we do. If you like it and if you get it, and you can see kind of what we're aiming for and what we try and achieve and the energy and all that sort of stuff. But then I think that's it. I think if you don't get it, if none of it makes sense to you, then I think the proof's in the pudding. Hopefully it resonates.
Fantastic. Luke Wade, thank you very much. I'll put all of the ways for people to get in touch with you and stuff in the show notes and below the video, etc. Thanks so much.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, here on the Entertainment Matters podcast, you'll find a mixture of longer form interviews and shorter analysis episodes where I talk about how you can start applying the ideas from the interviews in your own work in live entertainment. And if you'd like to be notified when there's a new episode and stay up to date with the podcast, you can sign up for the Entertainment Matters Q sheet at the link in the description. Thanks for listening, and thanks for whatever you do to make live entertainment happen.